All right, we're back. Uh, so I've discovered that music does not, in fact, play from these things. So this is actually probably the better one to jump into um, if you're watching this later. And the reason is that we've gotten all of the setup stuff done, and what we're doing now is actually like doing more work on solving things. So I'm just gonna post this to X. Part two, the support stream for Smithery is live now on YouTube. And we'll just at smithery.ai. Fantastic. Okay. So where we left off was I produced Eric's error that he was getting trying to deploy the Mapbox MCP server to Smithery. And what I was thinking, at least when I left off, was that what's causing the issue is going to be something about this structure where when the server builds, that here in the dist folder that we've got like a package.json for CJS, one for ESM, and that the entry point that it was pointing to, which before I changed it, I actually don't remember what that was, so I should probably go and check. Yeah, there we go. So index esm.js, which doesn't exist when we build it. So I'm just going to put that back like it was. So it's got something to do with the process that this server is configured to undergo when it builds. So I want to understand this a little bit better. So what I'm going to do here is let's just go Claude, and yeah, that's fine. And what I can do, oh, that's cool. Anyway, what I can do here is I can go into some of these slash commands that I have, which I have a lot. And actually, frankly, this actually probably would be a pretty good time to cover metagames, and maybe I can just like edit this out later. Okay. So metagames are it's a process I came up with a couple of months ago that's inspired by operations research, game theory, in the sense that like you can have game theory like if you were playing a game of solitaire or something like that. I don't know what that would be called, but it's this idea that you can you can have this process that if the agent just sticks to that the entire way through, that at some point it's going to arrive at an outcome that isn't failure. So what I mean by that, if I go here under games, so I feel like I should go through this just separately, but this is basically a pattern where an agent can move stepwise through a problem space, and like eventually if it just follows this over and over, is going to come out with either the source of a bug, or it will have a feature implemented in the way that it's supposed to be implemented. So I think I'm actually going to use this. And so the opening argument is the problem statement. So I'm going to say, oh shoot, I'm going to have to configure this. But anyway, we are trying to figure out why the MCP map or the MCP server from Mapbox, which is currently in the servers folder at the root of the project, is failing to deploy on Smithery. You have access to Airtable via Model Context Protocol, and you can look in the Smithery support base in the Discord bugs table or something similarly named for a record concerning this server. If you look there, you will find what the current error message is when we try to deploy the server on Smithery. What I want you to produce is a markdown file in a new folder at the root of the project called reports that details why this server appears to be building the way it is, specifically why in the dist folder there are separate folders for CJS and ESM, and why the server might be configured that way. We are looking to understand why this server is built the way that it is, so that in our process of addressing the Smithery deployment failures, we do not make unnecessary or unwanted changes to the server architecture. And one of the things that I just really like about being able to use voice is that even though I'm not able to express what I'm thinking in a way that might be clear the way it is when you write it out with the written word, and you have to organize your thoughts in that process to get your means of expressing the message. LLMs are able to work through a lot of that kind of meandering that you might have when you're working through your thoughts and just trying to speak them out loud. And that makes it very, very useful for as an input mode. All right, so iteration limit 3, that's fine. Confidence threshold, that's also fine. I'll just keep writing them out. Stakes, let's say high. And comments. Be sure not to change any code. Rather, you are analyzing the code base for this MCP server to explain the design behind the architecture and why it is built the way that it is. And the reason that I'm doing this is that I don't want to look at an unfamiliar way of putting together an MCP server and just assume that the developer is doing something wrong. There are a lot of ways to build these things. And it might be that we've just got some kind of random syntax error or not even error, but just something that isn't aligning with how Smithery expects this to be configured. That, other than that, maybe it's a interesting design for an MCP server that I haven't seen before. So let's just make sure that we serve this properly, and see just where I'm at in all of these. Yeah, so that'll be servers. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do. But first, crap, I think I actually should have configured that first, but whatever. So the main thing that I need to do is like configure Airtable with Claude Code. So I'm just going to take this and if I open this up, I should be able to. No. Okay, that's my fault. We'll do this shorter this time. That was not smart. All right. So Ulysses protocol, and we'll just say, I think I probably gave it too much context last time. Review. Let's go. It's servers slash and produce a markdown file in a new folder at the root of the project called reports that details why the server builds the way it does, specifically why there appear to be different builds happening for CJS and ESM and how that might connect to the underlying service that this MCP server provides. And that should be enough. So for anyone that's interested, so what it's going to be doing is it's going to have this state object, and it's going to use that to track what it's already done, and whether that was successful or not. There's also for quote unquote players, and basically this is the agent is going to not like spin off 4 sub agents, but it's going to, I guess, impersonate these different kinds of modes of thinking. And we've already established weights for how much each approach should count in the final analysis. And through that, it's just going to reason through what the next move should be from a few different points of view, is what that's doing. So we've got just references to other things that are connected there. So that would be just up here. I honestly should make an MCP server of all of these. That would probably be useful. Maybe I should do that. So now this is just basically just going through and conducting a review. I'm trying to think if I've got a code review one of these. I do have a code review one of these. All live, folks. That's why you're not watching. I'm really interested to know like what this thing's even going to give me. I am going to do something on these though, because I feel like a lot of people could make use of this. Yeah, made it in that, like in the actual MCP server code. So I'll need to move that. Dude, it might. Well, I'll just, I've just been streaming for 15 minutes without sharing my screen. I'll edit it in post. It's fine. So I guess if I am editing this in post, then to bring everybody in, when we left off, we reproduced Eric's error with the Mapbox server, and so what I'm doing now is just doing a code review to see why it's built the way that it is. And we have okay. Hmm. So so I'm guessing this is just from this to support Jest. So now let's look for, yeah, there we go. So here's a fact checking workflow. And so this is a fact checker in 3 parts, which is number one, it's going to break down everything in this report down to a collection of claims. And so a claim being like a single statement, like the Eiffel Tower was built in 1900, something that we can prove is false. And it's only saying one thing. We're going to break this entire report down into a series of claims. We're going to go and look for sources just out on the web that relate to the claims that are being made. And then we're going to compare the claims against the sources and see whether they're supported or whether they're refuted. So in order to do this, I'm actually going to need to configure, I think it's X's MCP server. So we can just go over here, go to Exa, and just configure that there. And then when we open Claude back up again, we can just go down and, okay, so I'm going to need to authenticate for both of these. Maybe just one. Actually, I don't know. We going to get anything? I'm skeptical. Ah, there we go. Cool. And let's see if that worked for both of them. Ah, damn. Oh, well, that one came up immediately. That's good. Okay. Just do a sanity check. Sweet. Okay. So we'll go back to that fact checking workflow. And I don't see anywhere that I like put in for arguments. So I'm guessing I can just say, perform a fact checking analysis on the following file. And Mapbox, MCP, server, build analysis. There we go. Huh. I don't know what happened there. Uh, review. Map box. MCP server build analysis. I'm hoping that this isn't like I would like you to break down this MCP server build analysis into a series of verifiable claims and then run that workflow on each claim. You may want to delegate to as many sub agents as there are claims in order to get this done. Let's see if it works. Correction, build analysis. Guess it didn't matter, but let's see the to-dos. Okay. So we'll just let that run for a second. All right, so we've got 24 claims in there. And the reason that I want to do it this way is that I'm hoping that by the end of working on this first issue, that we can have a workflow that an agent can run on many issues. And that's going to generalize. So this is pretty cool. I feel like I should connect it to my website server. It's just got like a lot more tools. So we can just see all of these different tool uses. And it's getting back stuff from X's embeddings. This did end up working out pretty well. So what I am looking to learn from this is we've got this report. I want to see if everything's correct. If it's not correct, maybe I should choose a different approach. And this could be something that we could write into a workflow like one of these and specify for an agent and just contain, interlinks to, or I guess references to other workflows that it has access to, which would correspond to whatever's in this commands folder. That's another one that I should do. Something on retrieval orchestrations. Very useful. Looks about, yeah, so half of these are done. Now it's using a lot of tokens here, so probably we're going to want to move to another Claude Code instance, or I guess Claude Opus instance. Yeah, whatever, just restarting Claude Code without any of the current context. I guess I could compact it, but at least in the past, that tended to build up pretty fast. Yeah, so just waiting on this. All right. So now all of these task agents just asynchronously, as they get done, they're returning, summaries or some kind of like representation of the essential information. They're passing it back to the main orchestrator agent, and then the orchestrator agent is going to take all of those and synthesize it into a report. And yes, that is a very useful thing, using Git work trees. In fact, we might do that next, depending on the output of this. There we go. I don't know. I might want to break out Claude Flow. All right. So the only one here that was false was the jest requiring CommonJS module format, which might end up being important. So let's say correct the Mapbox MCP server build analysis with the correct information. That's a weird way to phrase that. Sorry. Using the information found on that fact check report for the claims that have been determined to be false. So just thinking aloud about this, like if we wanted to make this into an agentic workflow, we could say, hey, run this workflow that already exists, produce a report, and then compare the report to, or the fact check report to the original report and make corrections if we've determined that it's false or maybe mostly false. But that's something that can be written out, in Markdown and code. That's a workflow that can be defined. Just thinking about kind of our desired end state of having an agentic workflow that could run through everything that I'm doing. And you just have Claude Code or Root Code or whatever follow it. Now if I wanted to do that at scale, I would need to have some kind of, I don't know, I called it on Twitter earlier, like the greater as gate pattern, I guess, or like reviewer as gate. kind of pattern where you have a different agent that, depending on certain actions that the main agent might want to take, it has to pass a review before that will be approved. So it doesn't just accidentally delete everything. Okay. So now, what I might want to do is go down to this MCP specification, and I will say, actually, glad I mentioned that earlier. Let's load up some new context. So this is where I'm going to use one of my tools context / commands. And I'm going to say, actually, maybe I do want to change this back. Yes, I do. So I'm going to say, review everything in the documentation about model context protocol, exclude non-TypeScript SDKs, and what I want to say after that is, for each of the web links included, deploy a subagent to fetch the content from that web page, and then synthesize your knowledge into a long report in the reports folder at the root of the project. Now, it probably doesn't have to write that report, but I find that that's useful. Like if you want an agent to have like the important stuff, quote unquote, front of mind, that just like having it condense all of that knowledge into a report is a pretty good way of doing that. It's been true for a couple of years now. I remember that being an early thing that people recommended that you do with ChatGPT when it first came out. Wait a minute. Okay. Well, I guess that's the... I have not configured you with this MCP server. Let me do that now. That's actually not a terrible idea. So I'm going to do most of this off screen. I think I already have I thought I had a API key to Mapbox already, but maybe not. So I'm just going to do this over in a different window. Let's log in. Yeah, I do have an account. Okay. Okay, so I do have a token. So I haven't had to like do this on a live stream, so I haven't had to like think about how I'm gonna keep my API keys from going on stream. Okay, maybe one way to do that would be, so I'll just go Mapbox MCP server. And the command is going to be node. And the args will be what's the point that it's expecting to build for the entry point? Yeah. So it would be in the dist folder. So copy that path. Awesome. And then there will be a env key. And there will be a manifest.json. That's Mapbox access token. And that token will be right here, hopefully. Okay. This will get better over time. Let's go config Smithery. Paste all that here. Get rid of this. That should be fine. I'll copy this and paste it. Which, well, that wouldn't have been great if somebody was watching live, but I can get rid of that in post. Okay. So I'm going to go Claude, and then the flag is config. Now I will copy this path. And we will see if it's connecting at all in the first place, which it is. Okay. So I didn't do this on stream, but like I knew that this was building. So it does work. And what I'm going to need to do now is use the resume flag. And I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. And I actually have a game for this. But I want to make sure that it's appropriate here. All right. And that'll be MCP or Mapbox MCP server. Run scenarios. Yeah, let's go. Reasoner equals clear thought. I think. Yep. And I'll just say, feel free to use the notebook functionality on Clear Thought to track your reasoning progress. Yeah, I think that's it. And let's see what it gives us. Sweet. I don't think I've ever seen it get an accurate timestamp, like, ever. I don't know. Maybe they'll be in Opus 4.2. Who knows? See what it gives us back. Sweet. Awesome. The more that I think about it, the more I think I really actually probably should serve these metagames from Clear Thought. I don't know why I haven't done that yet. Sweet. So the way that I actually like came up with this, and like the way that I come up with at least partially a lot of these things, is just talking to Claude Code about, I have some kind of goal that I would like it to be able to reach more frequently, and I'll ask, what? Oh, that's not good. And I'll ask like, what would make your life easier, if you had it as far as tools. And so it's using the notebooks as it goes. And I'm a big fan of, like most MCP servers, uh, having some kind of notebook functionality on it. It's it does a couple of things. Number one, you have like a record of what the agent's thought process was and like the flow of work that it took to get to wherever it ends up. And then just like as a result of being able to do that, I find, at least, I haven't run an eval on this yet, but I find that it seems to significantly improve performance, particularly on things like mathematics, where you can have something on the notebook that, you can run some code and check and see if the numbers add up, which addresses kind of a prominent weakness in LLMs. This is working pretty darn well. Just want to look at the tool output there. Yeah, this is working. So I don't remember whether I was saying it in this video or at the end of last video, but like this is why I wanted to look at this more extensively, because I figured like, something about the build splitting between, like the build coming out like it does, is definitely at the root of what's happening with Smithery. But I also wanted to get an idea of like why it's built that way, and I'm glad I did. I mean, because it seems to be, working very, very well just here locally. So I'm guessing I'm going to put that in the reports folder here, hopefully. Huh. There we go. And it's just kind of keeping up with the state of the game here in its state object. Yeah, the more I think, this is just, the metagames are just so useful for avoiding situations of you're absolutely right. I never ever want to read that ever again out of Claude, and so I've built some ways of avoiding that more consistently. So the Mapbox MCP server, the gist of what this is all telling me is that we need to preserve the design and the architecture as it came, because it's working very well, as it comes just here locally. And all we need to do is figure out what is the conflict of expectations with Smithery. So let me open up something new with Claude. And just have it update its memory here. So while it's doing that, definitely somewhere that I want to look is our documentation, and specifically with deployments. Now I'm guessing, I'm just going to go ahead and say that we should use the custom Docker container, but I can't name a specific reason that I would want to do that other than the build of the server is unconventional, and it would be easier to just containerize it and manage it from that level. That's actually a pretty good reason. So while it's doing that, well, this could be useful. Let's take a look at that Docker file. I'm wondering if the server is working great. It does seem like the place to look is at the containerization level. So what if I said, well, first of all, are you able to access the Smithery support base and Airtable via MCP? And specifically the table called, find out what that is. Yeah, Discord bug reports. You know what? Mac Whisper does not like my accent. Who knows? Maybe you don't either, but that's what I got. And that's Discord bug reports. Sweet. I love using Airtable as just like a common data layer between a bunch of different agents. Like I view Airtable as being like a common data layer about, I guess, just what you would think of as a data layer, and then linear um, being a common point of reference as far as like tasks about the entities contained in the data layer. It's a really good one too for that. Okay, awesome. There is a specific record in there that is related to the Mapbox MCP server. Do you see it? All right. Are you able to see the most recent error message that we got when trying to deploy to Smithery? Just make sure that it's that the one that's recorded in there is the most recent update. Okay, cool. I would like you to take a look at the Docker file here, as well as anything else in the Mapbox MCP server code that has to do with containerization or Docker. Uh, Examine and see if there are any candidates in those files for why we're getting the deployment error. All right. Because it's if it's building and running fine. I mean, it would be my hope. Well, let's let it run. Hmm. This is interesting. I'm going to stop right here for a moment. I will be right back. Okay. So I'm seeing here that the script modifies the build file after compilation. Okay. How would you propose fixing this issue? Create a markdown file in a new folder at the root of the project called specs. In this folder, generate a markdown file that expresses your desired end state, or that's a bad way to phrase that. Let's just say that expresses the end state you envision for this code base after a process, after the process, or after a process to address this issue has been executed. After some process to address this issue has been executed. So this is something that like draws off of indie dev Dan's work. This is a pattern that's kind of fundamental to how he does things, which is having a folder in the project called specs, where as you'd expect, like your specifications can go. I don't know who's seen that thing from the AI Engineer World's Fair. I forget who did the talk, but it was somebody that basically his whole point was that writing software now is writing good specifications. And that's something that Indie Dev Dan talks a lot about as well. So definitely recommend his content. Okay. Let's see what it gave us. All right, now something that I want to do is just like give it some points of reference for how to format it. So let's just say paste, and we'll rename this specs example. And okay, so let's say take a look at the examples in specs examples to get a feel for the formatting and structure, etc., that the Mapbox deployment fix file should follow. Yeah, I've just got some examples in there that I like to use. And this is from a separate server that I have. It's a alternative approach to deep research where the agent can look at a bunch of different deep research patterns and orchestrations, and then create its own that's custom fit to the situation that it's conducting deep research for. Okay. Okay. Let me make sure that it's not. Okay. Okay. That's cool. All right. So now here comes in the parallel work trees. So I think I keep these in here, but maybe not. Okay, that's cool. All right, so let's go parallel executor. And the action is execute. And the feature, I feel like I screwed this up somewhere, that there's a easier way to do this. Here, give me a second. I'm going to actually find that. Yep, I think this is it. This will be called parallel implementation .md. Cool. Continue. Let me make sure that this isn't. Yeah, so this is pretty specific to Python. So let's say update this to generalize away from Python, as well as any other implementation details. I'm not sure if I stole this from Indie Dev Dan or not. That's fair. All right. So once I confirm that it is done. Okay. So we'll restart, and then we'll go parallel implementation, and the feature name will be I don't know what to call this. I don't know. Script edit. Implementation plan. Number of implementations. We'll do 3. And then comments. Be sure to build and test each implementation, which will correspond to each of the get work trees made. That was a very unclear. Yikes. Let's just say prior to generating the results.md reports. So what this should do is it's going to build us 3 parallel work trees, do a version of the project in each one, so it'll clone what we've currently got into each one of those, and do 3 different implementations of the specification that we have, and then ideally, like only one has to work. Enter into the Mapbox MCP server folder to do the Git work trees. Be sure to utilize parallelization throughout. Sweet. Awesome. Well, maybe awesome. Actually, it might be better not to do the npm installations in parallel. So crash cursor. Might do it anyway. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. This might be rough. Yeah, this doesn't look good. I don't know. Maybe it'll come through. So in the meantime, while it's doing that, I think something that it might be useful to do would be to start like writing out this Smithery workflow somewhere. Here, I'll open up Windsurf. Let's see. We'll see if it'll let me open this up here. Cool, it will. Awesome. So let's just assume that we've got these commands here and like some specific MCP configuration, probably. Yeah, I figured that was going to happen. It might happen a couple of times, to be honest with you. So if I assume that and a specific kind of MCP configuration here, let me just add, let's go Smithery support workflow.md. And maybe I look at one of these games that we already have. I don't know. Maybe I want to do that separately. Yeah, sorry, augment. Well, all right. So this is going to implement this specification 3 times in parallel. Thinking it's going to spin up 2 more task agents. It does sometimes like just not do that, even if it says it's going to. Eh. That's one of the good things about doing it this way is that you can just kind of let it build whatever it thinks that it wants to build. Because like only one of the work trees has to contain something that works. I'm interested to just see what's doing. Let's implement the next two in parallel. Yeah, it just I don't know if it's going to do this or not, but does not look like it. I don't know. Well, I was I was hoping to demonstrate the benefits of parallelization, but sometimes Claude just doesn't want to do it. Hmm. I feel like I should probably take a look at that, but looks like it's resolved for the time being. I love it when it just freaks out in the UI like that. Hmm. We've devolved into watching paint dry. I don't know. I'd like to do more of these. I'd like to figure it out, I guess, as time goes on, like, what the presentation format should be. Hmm. Might be better, honestly, at this point to move to demonstrating metagames. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. All right. Well, these will improve over time, but I do want to keep doing these. Thank you to anybody that watched, which looks like it might be 0 people. Have a good night.